Hi guys, and welcome to another Brown Car Guy and Buddies, and today we are talking to somebody all the way over in Cape Town in South Africa, a guy called Sudhir Banzai Matai, who I've met a couple of times, most famously on the launch of a very special car that we will probably get into when we start talking, and it was quite a few years ago. I haven't seen him in years, but we obviously stay in touch. He runs an online portal called Apex Auto, and it's not only an automotive media outlet, but he also does a range of clothing on there, and we're going to talk about how that all came about. And he's also something of a pretty handy racing driver, and I think that's sort of quite a passion for him. So it'll be fascinating to talk to him about how he managed to get into all of that and how he's managed to accomplish all of that and what he's been doing this year. Anyway, before we get into that, make sure that you're subscribing to youtube.com/Brown Car Guy. Make sure that you're following me on all the social media channels. Just search for my hashtag. It's there on my hat, hashtag Brown Car Guy. And of course, subscribe to browncarguy.com. If you enjoy my content, you can also sponsor me on patreon.com/Shazad Sheikh, and I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video. Cool, let's get into this. Sudhir, how you doing, mate? It has been ages. I cannot even remember the last time we actually physically met.
It has been very long, buddy. It has been years and years since we met. I mean, we keep in touch over social media and Facebook and all these nice things. But yeah, it has been years since we shared a car and swapped war stories shoulder to shoulder.
I remember because it's wonderfully, you posted recently the picture of you with the 911 Turbo, and then it came up in my stream as well as a memory. And that was, how many years ago was that? Is that 9 years ago or something like that?
That would have been, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It was a second gen 997 Turbo that you and I shared in Portugal, I think.
That's right.
And I took the picture of you in that car park, and you took the picture of me, so it showed up on our Facebook feeds like a day apart.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that was good fun. That was a great day. That was really, really good. That was a good fun event as well.
And it was, funnily enough, it was exactly a day later after I had driven Porsche Turbo S 992.
Right.
So we got almost a full generation plus one. How far apart we've seen each other.
That's amazing, isn't it? So it's one. So we measure time in Porsches. How's that?
Yes, yeah, we measure in 911 increments.
That's how we do. So, mate, so you are, I mean, you've been a journalist for 2 decades, but we'll get into that. But tell me, what is Double Apex? I mean, you're based in Cape Town in South Africa, and you do this Double Apex thing, which was like a clothing range. I mean, what's that? How does that tally with automotive journalism? What's that all about?
Double Apex started as a bit of a pet project. I was employed, as you know, for many years by a leading South African print title. And during that time, one of my assignments was to go racing and report on it.
Name the title, name the magazine.
I was Car Magazine South Africa. And one of my work assignments was to go racing for a full season at the national level. And it's the first full season of racing I'd ever done. And everyone tells you about this drug called motorsport. And once I'd done a season, I was addicted, and I had to work on a way to then continue racing. So I decided to start this clothing label called Double Apex. It's an automotive inspired clothing label, so gear for petrol heads. And I had run that for about 2 or 3 years, and using all the proceeds from the clothing label to fund my race car. So I wasn't dipping into my rent and to my grocery fund every month to go and enjoy my hobby.
So what sort of clothes are we talking about?
The bulk of our lineup is t-shirts. I'm wearing one of them now. There's hoodies, caps, beanies, mugs, stickers, that kind of stuff. And all of it has an automotive and motorsport in slot.
So let's go back a little bit. What is your link with clothing? What inspired you to do, car people and clothing don't necessarily collide in the normal sphere of things. So how did you go, oh, you know what? I'm going to start a clothing range. Was there a background or something in that area?
No, there isn't actually. as you pointed out, I'm down in Cape Town. We're quite far away from the UK, Germany, the US, and you get all this really cool automotive gear in Europe and the US. And to get that stuff landed in South Africa invariably ends up costing more than the product itself. So I bought stuff when I traveled, really cool, T-shirts of racetracks I'd driven, occasionally, a funny T-shirt with a car saying on it. And I realized that there was nobody in South Africa doing it. And I thought to myself, well, perhaps there's a bit of a gap in the market here. And I invested an entire paycheck into producing our first run, and it worked. I have loads of mates who are petrol heads all over South Africa, guys I race with, people that I'm friends with on Facebook, just people I've encountered along the way through work. And they all enjoyed the products. So I saw it as an opportunity to make a little bit of dosh on the side, and also to be a bit of a creative outlet. So I use some of the sort of.
What was your background? Did you have a background in design or graphic design or anything like that?
No, not at all. The concepts are mine, and often the sayings and the slogans you see on the shirts are something that we've heard along the way, or a standing joke in the automotive community. So I used those to then create this clothing line of T-shirts.
Excellent. So that's a stroke of genius. So let's put the clothing range aside for a minute and go back to the motor racing. How did you get into motor racing then?
So, being a petrol head, you always want to drive cars. You always want to drive quickly.
Well, actually, before that, then define how did you become a petrol head? Because one of the things that I've talked about in this series actually is trying to understand, where does the petrol head gene come from? And I think for a lot of different people from different cultures and different backgrounds, it comes from different places. Like for me, I can't even identify where it came from. It just I just had it. So how did you catch that bug?
It's easy enough. In my case, it stemmed from my family. My dad and his brothers were into cars, and I've got many cousins who are older than I am, and they were all into cars. So from the time we were very little, we were surrounded by guys who knew about cars, who were always repairing cars and working on them. And so weekends you were passing as a youngster, as a sort of bottom end of school, 6, 8 years old, you were in an uncle's garage passing him torque wrenches and ring spanners and Allen keys, and you learnt along the way. You learnt what things did, you learnt how to replace them, and eventually that goes from passing the tools and helping to fix to I want to drive this thing now. I want to see how it goes.
And what kind of cars are we talking about?
So going back into the mid 80s, a couple of old Fords. My dad had a Mark 1 Cortina.
Wow.
He had a Cortina GT, which according to my mom, he drove too quickly, and she made him sell it, and he had to buy a Beetle when my brother was born. My uncles and my cousins drove things like Datsun Triple S's. There were a couple of Ford Escorts, a couple of VW Bugs. I remember somebody owned a VW Cabrio, not a genuine Cabrio, but a VW Cabrio. So that was sort of the spectrum of cars that we were privy to, and we got to see and work on as youngsters.
That's amazing. So, I mean, that's a lot of cool cars, actually. So I can see where that come from. And then at one point, did you decide then, actually, before we get into the motor racing, tell us a little bit about car culture in South Africa. And you were obviously privy to it because of the family and the fact that they all worked on cars. But how easy is it there to get into cars? I mean, do you have access to them? Do you have access to media, especially when you were younger?
The car culture in SA is quite deeply rooted. I think people abroad don't know what's going on down here. They don't understand the depth and breadth of just the love for cars and automotive passion within SA. We had cars as far back as Model T.
Yeah.
So we're going right to the start of the last century when the first car started arriving. All the major OEMs were producing here at some point. And currently we have Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Nissan. I'm missing somebody, but there's like a half a dozen automotive manufacturers who produce right here on local soil. So we've had motorsport in South Africa. We had not a Formula One, but a Grand Prix race in 1948. We've had a dozen tracks that have hosted countless Formula One World Championship events. We've got our own Formula One World Champion, as you know, in Jody Scheckter, who lives in your part of the world now. So it is, there was lots going on in the automotive space. So as a youngster, 35 years ago, you were surrounded by it. The old dirt oval tracks all over the country. There were drag strips in many places. So it wasn't difficult to access automotive culture.
And was rallying a big thing?
I beg your pardon?
Rallying.
Yeah, rallying's been quite big in SA. Up until fairly recently, the scene's taken a bit of a beating in the last few years. But we have proper works Audi Quattros running here in the 80s. Full on Audi Motorsport Works effort with guys that were racing not only in South Africa, who would then go to Europe and the US and race Audi Quattros there, and then come back and race them here. So they were the top guys, not only in SA, but they were competing on the world stage at the same time.
That's amazing. So how did you then get into track racing then? I mean, what inspired you to go down that route? Especially as opposed to, like, as you've said, there were all these other disciplines, such as, dirt racing, drag racing, rallying, but you specifically, and especially from looking at your trophies behind there, you've obviously been quite successful at it as well. So what took you in that direction?
Well, I enjoy driving fast, as many of us do. Us motoring journalists are privy to some pretty cool experiences all over the world and racetracks. I think when you and I drove that 997 Turbo, we spent the morning driving on the road and the afternoon doing countless laps of Estoril Formula One circuit. So I'd done multiple track driving experiences for many years at many different tracks in many different cars. I didn't suck at it. I knew how to turn the steering wheel. I know where to hit the brake pedal. I don't run it off the track too often. So we were going to, and I'm a massive Formula One fan. I have been since I was like 6 or 7 years old. Following circuit racing, we had an incredible national circuit racing series here for many years. We used to have our own version of touring cars.
Right.
We have the same rule set that you guys had in the UK and other parts of Europe. So the European drivers would come down to South Africa to race, and our guys would go over to Europe and the UK to race. That's the level we were competing at. And I'd always followed circuit racing. I always thought it was interesting.
Who were your favorite drivers?
I'm a big Hamilton fan. I have been for a very long time. I was a big Schumacher fan back in the day. When I was very young, it was the Prost Senna era, and I enjoyed Prost's calculated and measured approach to racing. So I was a fan of Prost, and a bit further back, Gilles Villeneuve was, the gung-ho, sideways, leave nothing on the table kind of driver. He was fantastic. Jody Scheckter, South Africa's Formula One champ, I've never met. He speaks very highly of Gilles. I've never met Jody. I'd like to at some point maybe interview him or visit him. I believe he's got a phenomenal car collection. Seems like quite an interesting guy. So I followed motor racing for many years, and at my last job, I'd attend many launches where there was a track driving experience. So you get better at it the more you do.
Yeah.
You have opportunity to ride alongside some really famous and really quick drivers like Walter Roll and Romain Dumas and Felipe Massa, and you watch what guys are doing, and you hope that you can try and emulate just a little bit of what they're doing. And in 2012, the company I was working for got the opportunity to put one staff member forward to compete in a full season of national circuit racing in a one-make series called Polo Cup.
Uh-huh.
And my boss came up to me and said, "I've got this opportunity for you. I know it's something you want to do. Would you like to race polos for a season?" And it was quite a tricky question, because Polo Cup is the most competitive series that we've had for 25 years in South Africa.
I can imagine.
But yeah, it's extremely competitive, and the youngest guys are around 15 and a half years old.
How many cars in the field?
The year I competed, we went as high as 36.
Wow! Because you can just picture it, a load of little polos jostling about, 36 of them on the track. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's a traffic jam of note, and if you half a second quicker than your last lap, you gain 6 or 8 places on the grid.
Uh-huh.
So I recall one particular race where I think 21 cars fell within 1 second of each other.
Right.
From 1 to 21 was, it's a 1 second blanket. So my boss said to me, "Would you like to go circuit racing?" And it didn't take me long to agree. Yeah. Though I knew it was this massive, you were
like
to climb.
You were like, "Let me think about it." Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But I did have a few sleepless nights post making that decision, wondering what have I got myself into. So I raced that season. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't hurt anybody else.
Yeah.
I didn't get lapped. I kept up with the field.
There must be a bit of door rubbing, a bit of body rubbing when there's that many cars on the track, though.
Say again.
There must be a bit of jostling and a bit of door rubbing, with that many cars.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was crazy. I mean, we probably went through one write-off per race.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it can be, and it can be worse than that at some races when guys get stuck into each other and people lose their cool. You can get 2-3 cars out in a single accident.
So, and was that for Volkswagen Motorsports? Was that for Volkswagen themselves?
Yeah, so Volkswagen is the series sponsor, right. And we produce polos here.
Yeah, right.
So it's a cost-effective series for up-and-coming races. It's a one-make car. It's a controlled tire. It's controlled fuel, controlled brake pads. So it's sort of a grown-up version of karting, where everything is really, really controlled, regulated when it comes down to driver skill. So I'd done a season worth of polos, and we didn't go back a second season to race again at the national level. And I spent I think a year or two just moping around, wondering how I would get back into a race car.
Uh-huh.
And then I started Double Apex. With the intent then of using any proceeds. If Double Apex worked as a clothing line, anything I made of Double Apex, I would then plow into a hobby motorsport career.
Brilliant. What a
yeah, Double Apex. Double Apex took off a bit better than we anticipated initially. We thought we'd be positive in a year or so, and probably I think within 3 months we were doing okay. We were more than breaking even. So I went off and I bought a car, and I started to race prep it.
What did you get?
And I think I got a first generation Mazda MX-5.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah, they're quite rare down here. I think there's just sort of 200-300 of them in total, unlike UK and the US where there are tens of thousands of them. I found this car had been sitting in a warehouse somewhere, neglected by its previous owner, and I made him a cheeky offer and he agreed. So I took it off his hands. I race prepped it. I found a series that would accommodate a roadster and went racing.
Excellent. And never looked back since. That's amazing. So and you've raced for Ford as well, you said?
I raced for Ford in an off-road race, like a rally raid style, like a Dakar style event.
Cool.
So Ford gave us a Ranger pickup, near standard Ranger pickup, to compete at the national level. And I did one round of that event, of the series, and I put it on the podium, which is pretty cool. I've been quite lucky. I raced a couple of interesting machines. I also raced a 997 GT3 Cup car. A very good friend of mine races Porsches here in South Africa. And there was an endurance event, and he said to me, I know you've always wanted to drive one of these, and I've got this endurance event coming up, and you're welcome to share the car with my son, who's going to be in the spare car. So I joined them for a race weekend. The son and I raced, and we were in contention with the dad. And very late in the race, and we were very conscious of the fact that it was the team boss, and so we were just we were going to drive it to the end. We were lying in a strong position quite late into the race. I drove the second half of the enduro, and the lead car, which was our teammate, got a puncture very late into the race, and he got his puncture very early in the lap.
Right.
So we unlapped ourselves, and in the time it took for him to go back to the pits, we put, I think, 2 laps on him. And he recovered one of those, but I think in the end he finished a lap down to us. So we ended up winning that race. It was an endurance event.
I wonder how the
dad... car that didn't belong to us.
Oh no! Wonder how the dad felt about that. Oh dear.
Yeah, the team manager was cool. The team owner and manager was cool about it. He was one of his cars won.
Yeah.
He had the pace on us, but endurance racing is endurance racing.
That's true.
They're very good friends of mine. Even after I raced their car, they run a team called Bigfoot Express Freight, and they're constantly running 911 GT3 Cup cars that they bring from Europe. Really cool outfit, and they've got a 991 Cup car at the moment, which, if I can twist his arm one of these days, I'll get behind the wheel of.
Awesome. So let's go back a bit earlier and go back to how you started out in motoring journalism, because again, that's a very interesting arena, and it's not always easy for people to get into. What's it like over there in South Africa?
So, because we've had such a rich history of motoring in South Africa, motoring journalism goes, back 30, 35 years. It's not quite as old as, the UK and those long-standing titles we have over there. But the oldest titles in South Africa are over 60 years old. And I, a petrol head, much like yourself, for my entire life. I'd finished my high school. I'd gone to university. I'd studied an undergraduate law degree. And when I walked out with my undergrad, with legal studies as a basis, I just thought to myself, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to go and work in the automotive business. And I didn't have a plan.
It's something really funny, because I interviewed recently a guy over here called Sayed, and he runs the Drivers Union Supercar Club. And he was telling me, like, very similar to you, he suddenly one day decided that he wanted to do law. So he went off and he did a law degree, but by the time he finished it and started applying for jobs, he decided, nah, it's not really for me. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, if the passion's that strong in you and you realize that you won't be happy unless you go and work in this field. And I had a double major. I had psychology and I had legal studies.
Right.
And neither of those appealed to me. I didn't want to sit at a desk all day in either one of those fields. So I decided I was going to work in the automotive field. I tried to get into the Formula One game I was hoping for some sort of technical role, and that didn't quite work out. And I eventually started writing, just to keep myself busy, having read so many magazines over the years.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I could give this a shot. And I started writing initially a couple of freebie stories for local newspapers.
Was that about motorsports? Was that about motorsports?
Say again?
Was that about motorsports then?
Yeah, just in general, if it was a friend's car that was pretty interesting, a local motorsport event, whether it was an autocross gymkhana style event. And then I don't recall why, but I started submitting work to an Australian magazine, and they enjoyed the work, the variation from their usual content from the South African market. they liked what they saw. They asked me to submit a couple of pictures with my words, and then I started submitting to this Aussie magazine and then a New Zealand magazine, a Kiwi mag.
Wow, interesting.
And they were paying me in Aussie and Kiwi dollars.
Yeah.
And the South African rand, our money is relatively weak against sort of pound, euro, Aussie dollar, and Kiwi dollar. So the money coming in from that side of the world was actually pretty decent. And I thought to myself, well, I could make a go of this.
Yeah.
And I pursued a freelance career for a couple of years. And then I got noticed somewhere along the line by an organization here in South Africa that tries to train budding automotive journalists.
Oh, really?
It's our guild of writers. I think you guys have.
Yeah, we have
Motor Writers Guild.
Yeah, we have the Guild of Motoring Writers here, and then we have smaller groups, writers groups around the region. Yeah.
Right. So we have the South African Guild of Motoring Journalists, and also a long-standing organization that's like 40 years old. And they had got to a point about 20 years ago where they needed to bring in younger, enthusiastic guys into the fold who knew the space really well and, were interested to pursue this as a career.
Yeah.
And somebody there had caught wind of my CV and they said, listen, we run this trainee program and we'd like you to apply. So I did, and I was shortlisted, made the final round, and I was eventually awarded their scholarship for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty good program. I don't think it runs any longer, which is a shame because it helped to bring in a whole generation of young writers into the fray. So you run over the course of 1 year through different aspects of the automotive game. So you go to a trucking publication, you go to a motorsport publication.
Ah, interesting.
You do a bit of PR, so you work on the other side of the fence, and you see it from that point of view, which is quite cool. Gives you a very good understanding of what that side of the business has to deal with. I think motoring journalists the world over can be quite we're a tricky bunch.
We're a bunch of babies, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, there you said it.
Demanding little babies ready to throw our toys out of the pram at a moment's notice. That's what we are, I know. Manufacturers spoil us sometimes,
So it is pretty cool as a journalist to work on the other side of the fence and realize what goes on and what the PR industry has to put up with. So I worked PR.
So tell me this. This program was really useful to you. And, South Africa is quite an ethnic mix, isn't it? It's quite a cultural mix of different people. And so I'm the brown car guy. You're an honorary brown car guy. How is it for brown car guys over there? Are there a lot of people in the media like you?
Yeah. If you use the strict definitions, the brown folks make up a very small percentage of South Africa. I think it's 2.5%. No, it's actually less than that. It's like 1.8% or 2%. And we're quite well represented in not just the motoring space, in the automotive space, but in the motoring industry at large. So there are lots of people, in prominent positions in the OEM space.
All right.
So, heads of communication, GMs of companies, heads of marketing, heading up entire division. So the passenger car division of Mercedes-Benz is headed up by an Indian guy. Head of comms Audi is a young Indian girl.
So and what about on the media side?
Say again?
What about on the media side?
Yeah, on the media side as well. There's a fair number of brown guys. A couple of girls, very few. There are a good few brown guys though across the field.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think I might move to South Africa. Honestly, you're making it sound fantastic.
Especially the numbers are quite high, especially considering the small percentage that we make up.
Yeah, exactly.
If you did the proportional representation, you think there should be like 1 or half per event. And there's probably 2 and 3 per event, maybe sometimes more.
That's amazing. It's a complete opposite to here, which is it's kind of tragic, but that's a whole different discussion. But that's really good to hear. So in terms of
Yeah.
what you've been doing recently, so I mean, I saw you were reviewing a couple of Hondas recently. But what's been cool this year? I mean, how has it been during this lockdown? Have you managed to get out and do much stuff during this this weird year that we've had?
Yeah. So our lockdown here was interesting. Well,
I mean,
going back one
South
step.
Africa has actually dealt with it quite well, hasn't it, with the coronavirus?
Yeah. Exactly. So just going back one step, Double Apex, we were talking about earlier on, the clothing label has since morphed into a clothing label plus an automotive content
Yeah,
portal.
yeah. Just
So
mention
now
mention the URL where people can find you.
yeah, so it's doubleapex.co.za. Hopefully you can stick a link into
Yeah, I will
the
do.
bottom of this video.
Yeah,
.co.za, which is the
yeah,
important points. It's double as in two and apex as in apex on a racetrack, and that automotive content portal is mine, and I run it and I edit it, and I have a couple of contributors on an ad hoc basis, but it is essentially my baby. I've branched out on my own, and I run this entire portal. So I've been sort of home office for the better part of 2 and a bit years.
yeah,
And when the lockdown arrived, life didn't really change for me because
yeah,
I was still at home
yeah,
at
yeah,
my desk doing what
yeah,
I was doing prior to that. The only difference is that my missus is now in the house every day. She doesn't go to
yeah,
work.
yeah,
Um, so the lockdown was interesting. I think we started end of March.
yeah,
Uh, Towards the very end of March, our president took advice from the medical fraternity, and we've got a bit of the history of South Africa. So we've got this very poor, large segment of the population that doesn't have great healthcare
yeah,
and lives very close to each other and travels in public transportation, and they saw the likelihood of this spreading
yeah,
very rapidly, and they put a very hard lockdown in place very early,
mhm,
and it worked.
yeah,
So we've had infections like many places in the world. The numbers went up, and for our population, we've handled it well. I think there are a few underlying factors. There's talk that one of the mandatory immunizations we take as youngsters has helped us to have a very low fatality rate versus
right,
other parts of the world. So during lockdown, I was still at my desk,
mhm,
at my home office, like I had been for
yeah,
a year and a half. So the only thing that changed was that, we weren't going to car launches, obviously.
yes,
We weren't
yes,
getting cars to review.
yeah,
Um, so I decided in the early part of lockdown, that first sort of month, 6 weeks, um, I I saw an opportunity with my channel, and I started to produce content specifically for people who are now at home.
yeah,
And I'd done multiple pieces on my site, and it's all up there still. What to watch when you're stuck at home as a car
yeah,
guy.
yeah, of course, yeah,
So I did these multiple posts of these collections of really cool car content that
yeah,
maybe you were too busy to catch before, and now
yeah,
you've got a little bit of time on your hands. You can watch it. So I had this ramp up of traffic on my website in the first 4 to 6 weeks of lockdown, where people hadn't quite figured out how they were going to work and where they were going to work and what they were going to do.
yeah,
So by and large, people were sitting around doing very little at home and on their phones and on their laptops all day. And my website traffic just started to climb
yeah,
to unseen numbers before. And I took the opportunity then to try and bring on a couple of advertisers to the site,
mhm,
which worked initially because we were doing such good numbers. And then I think once people sort of settled into, hang on, this is going to be my
yeah,
foreseeable future, and I've got to work. So
yeah,
people started to work at home, and then I saw a
yeah,
little bit of tail off on the traffic on my website.
People thought it's not just a laugh, this lockdown thing. We've got to actually work through it. So anyway, we're coming up towards the end of well, I always go over the time slot, as I always claim. But looking forward to 2021, and hopefully this terrible year is going to be behind us. What are the cars that you're looking forward to driving most? And what's really exciting you about the car industry?
I'm looking forward to driving anything.
I know the feeling.
I'm looking forward to driving anything. When you're in our position and you've been there for many, many years, when you're doing it, it seems like a chore. When you're trudging to the airport and you're getting on a flight and you're going somewhere, typically somewhere nice, and a nice hotel and a nice car. I'm looking forward to to traveling somewhere to drive something decent. I want to drive a racetrack again. I haven't been on a track in way too long. I feel the nerves every now and then, and I want to put my racing gloves on. I want to put my helmet on and go out. So I'm looking forward to jumping back in my race car at some point. 21, there's some interesting electric cars that are coming out. I drove 911 Turbo S, which you saw the other day online. It's quite a machine that I didn't think I'd get my hands on, and Porsche South Africa decided that they were going to host a ride and drive event, a very small event. So it's like one Porsche Turbo, one Cayenne, and very, very distanced type of event. Which is pretty cool. The 911 Turbo S. I believe there's a GT3 in the works, which hopefully we'll see early in the year, if not the year before the year is out. That Rimac electric car, which we see constantly.
Is there a lot of interest in electric cars in South Africa?
We have very few electric cars. Very, very few electric cars. So was that the question, Shazad?
What's the interest there? Because I imagine the infrastructure at the moment, it can't be that great for charging electric cars.
No, it's virtually zero. I think we've got, in pure EV terms, I think there's like 4 models that you can buy. There's a Jaguar I-Pace, there's a Nissan Leaf, there's a Mini Electric. I'm missing one, an i3. That's sort of the sum total of what you can buy from pure EVs. And there isn't really a network to support EVs just yet. So the interest isn't there. Also, the cars are expensive. So there's no tax rebate. There's no incentive to go electric just yet. We also get Taycan. Taycan was launched earlier this year.
Interesting. Cool, man. You know what? It's been absolutely awesome to catch up with you after all this time, and we must do this again soon. But it's a fascinating also to get an insight into that region and the car culture over there and how the year has been. So it's been absolutely wonderful. Thanks so much for doing this. And once again, just remind people where they can find you. Just say your URLs and social media accounts.
Firstly, thank you very much for hosting me. I appreciate it. It's really cool to see you again and to chat. We do keep in touch on Facebook and that, and it doesn't come close to actually seeing someone and having a proper one-on-one chat. Hopefully, one day we're sitting across the table and we're talking about 2020 in very nostalgic terms. Having just driven a car on a racetrack and we get to enjoy a cup of coffee together. The website's doubleapex.co.za. That's doubleapex.co.za. UK is COUK. We are co.southafrica. And we're on Instagram as well. We dblapx. People can find me mostly on my own social media. It's usually Banzai Matai. So it's BANZAI MATAI. So it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And we put out whatever content we generate on the website, we disseminate via all our social media platforms.
That's awesome. Dude, thanks so much, Sudhir. It's been fantastic to talk to you. And speak to you again soon.
Same here, mate. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's always fun to catch up with and compare notes with a fellow automotive journalist, content creator, and in this case, he's also a racing driver and has a fantastic range of clothing. Do go check that out and, order something. Maybe you'll give me a commission if you do. Anyway, it was awesome to catch up with him. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly enjoyed it. And let me know what you thought in the comments above, below, elsewhere. Of course, do check out his platforms. I'll put all the links below as well. Now, make sure that you are subscribing to youtube.com/browncarguy so you don't miss any of these, plus the other content I do, which is the bulletin stuff, which is kind of news and commentary stuff, and also car reviews and some other content as well on this channel. Hit that notification bell icon so you don't miss any of my uploads. Make sure that you follow me on all the social media channels. Just search for my hashtag. It's browncarguy, as you see it there on my hat. And of course, subscribe to browncarguy.com. If you enjoy my content, you know what? You can sponsor my content, and that would be absolutely fantastic. It would help me a lot in order to keep doing what I do and pay for the time, energy, and resources that it takes to create this content. And you will join such incredible luminaries as Mohamed Ali Humaid over in the UAE, Partha over in India, find him on parthans.com, Tom Conway-Gordon here in the UK, Isaac Beauchard over in America, find him on bespokeautos.com, Reza Adil here, find him at Instagram account alazarde.cigars, and also Mohammed Qasim, and find him on hms.com. Find them there. These guys are awesome because they're supporting me. You could join that lineup as well. Just go to my Patreon account. If not, if you can't do it, no worries. Just make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you comment if you can. Subscribe. You absolutely must be doing so, and tell all your friends to do the same. And of course, share it if you can. That would be absolutely awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon in the next video.